As we were talking about this preparing, I actually tried to go out and see if there was an idea. And I think there's an opportunity there for a newsletter in the prediction market space. You can predict what's going to happen on basically any event, like who's going to be elected president, who's going to be the next guest on the Joe Rogan podcast. The total wagered in the US on prediction markets was about $1 billion in 1 month.
You have to be early. You have to recognize that and become an authority and become like the go-to place before everyone is trying to find more about it.
I haven't been able to find any newsletters about this. This is clearly something that can make you money.
I was thinking the other day, right? You have a bunch of people who saw like the crypto trend super early and turned that into like huge 7-figure newsletters like Milk Road. Then you got a bunch of people who sort of knew that AI was going to be a thing. And they bet the house on that, built these newsletters like AI Tool Report, Rundown, The Neuron, built them into like 7-8-figure businesses in some cases really quickly. And these opportunities, like, they don't come along very often to build these huge consumer newsletters. But there are like waves and trends that happen every now and again. And I'm kind of just obsessing a little bit at the moment over the idea of like, how do you recognize these opportunities and decide if it's something you want to like jump onto or not?
Yeah, so I think clearly I missed the AI boat and the crypto boat. I probably would have went into something stupid like Web3. But I think my thought on this is not to look for trends, right? Like I'm always things have to come to you, kind of divine intervention, right? So an idea comes to you, you see AI kind of bubbling up. It happens to be in your wheelhouse or tangential to your wheelhouse, and that's how you get into it. I feel like you probably have a more scientific way. Like I kind of see it as it comes to me in a dream or something, that I get it, or it's something that I'm just like, I'm super interested in. But do you have something a little more scientific on how you would approach, these finding a topic for a newsletter?
I mean, it's very vibes based, right? But I'm definitely thinking about like if I wanted to build in one of these huge opportunities or like try and make myself, I guess, someone who can see these before other people.
Yep.
I guess, because if you want to build a newsletter like the big AI ones or the big crypto ones, you have to be early. You have to recognize that and become an authority and become like the go-to place before everyone is trying to find more about it, right? Like you have to be there and already be the one that the hardcore people are recommending when everyone starts asking for recommendations of like how to figure this thing out.
Right.
So,
and that's why I think it needs to be something that you're interested in, right? Because it's a good point, like bring up the hardcore thing. Like you're not going to be hardcore about AI unless it's something that you already care about and that you're talking about with your nerdy friends or, in your circle. So that's why I think those guys won. And I think that's why, the Milk Road won, because they were crypto guys who were thinking about this and they were like, oh, we see an opportunity to start a newsletter about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to be the kind of person who is really curious and who is surrounded by smart friends who are really nerdy and like geeking out at the forefront of things that really nobody else cares about just yet, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm thinking, how do you put yourself in a position where you're seeing things that the smartest, weirdest people are doing today and that kind of totally makes sense to you and you start doing or you start caring about and getting excited by, but random normal smart people that you work with or that you're like friends with or you'd hang out with for drinks, like people you went to school with, they have never heard of this, right? And they're unlikely to be hearing of it in the next couple of months. That's the kind of thing I think that I would be looking for. But it's got to be something that's like, it has to be something that is relevant to like an affluent audience, right? It has to be that would be like my second criteria is like, it has to be something that people who have money are going to care about. And it kind of has to be something where there's going to be like an ongoing interest or need for like news, community, education, entertainment, right? It can't be like a one-off kind of thing, right? It has to be something that's going to be ongoing, and there's going to be some way you could actually support that with a newsletter.
I agree with that. I don't know that it needs to be necessarily affluent people. I think my criteria would be more people that are willing to spend money or do something, right? Or be motivated by whatever it is that you're writing about. Affluent is nice, right? Because they have more money to spend, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be affluent folks.
Yeah, I think willingness to pay is much more important than affluent. Yeah, I wrote down affluent in my notes, and I couldn't think of another word when I saw it there.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, rich people are always better, right? They have more to spend, and they're willing to spend on stupid stuff. Like I think
when I say affluent, I just mean like someone who has like a white collar job or like a middle class job, right? Like someone who has money to spend on like discretionary fun stuff, I guess.
Somebody who has an internet connection that has a Gmail inbox, right? It's super tough to get Wi-Fi living under a bridge. I will say that.
I believe you. I believe you there. The water must make it difficult to keep everything working fine. Have you seen any ideas like this recently?
Yes. So as we were talking about this preparing, I actually tried to go out and see if there was an idea. And this is something that has been kind of in the back of my brain. And again, right, the reason it came to me was mostly because it's in my wheelhouse, right? So it's kind of tangential to finance. It's also in the realm of gambling. And, I worked at Barstool, it's a gambling company. So all of this stuff is kind of top of mind for me. And it's prediction markets. I think there's an opportunity there for a newsletter in the prediction market space. And are you familiar with this at all?
A little bit, but like break it down for me because I don't really understand it. It was something to do with like I remember the election last year. It was like a big thing, but I never really got into it. So yeah, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah. So the basic idea is that you can, I guess we can't call it bet, or they don't want to call it bet, but you can predict what's going to happen on basically any event, right? So it could be something like who's going to be elected president, who's going to be the next guest on the Joe Rogan podcast. There's all these things, and there's markets for pretty much everything. And one of the big players in this space is Kalshi, and they were the one who basically sued the US government to overturn the rule that allowed this to, become a thing like right before the election. I don't know if they were lucky or good or both, but it was pretty awesome, what they did. And they clearly made a ton of money during the election. I know this has been happening for quite a bit longer. I think there's Polymarket in the UK and over in Europe. So it's been happening over there for much longer, but you guys are much cooler about, these sorts of things. So one of the things you mentioned, right, is like willingness to spend. So the thing that I looked at, I wanted to compare it basically to the US sports gambling market to see what the prediction market looked like. So total wagered in the US on sports gambling in 2024 was about $150 billion. So that's, the total handle, not what people won or lost, but just how much they bet on sports. The total wagered in the US on prediction markets, which mind you only started in November of 2024, was about $1 billion in 1 month. And that was in November of 2024 when the US election happened. That's fallen quite a bit. And again, there's like really one major player in the space. That's fallen to about 50 million per month. And you can follow along with this basically on Kalshi. But there are a bunch of new players getting into this space. So Robinhood just launched this on their platform. They're mostly using it as a workaround for sports gambling because you can gamble on the outcome of games, which is essentially sports gambling. And then you actually sent me, I didn't even know about this, X, Twitter, actually entered into an agreement with Polymarket to do prediction markets, I think, on Twitter. I don't know exactly what it means, but they're going to be the official prediction market partner of X. So this is clearly growing. It's not huge yet, but I do think there is an opportunity here because I haven't been able to find any newsletters about this. There's a ton of gambling newsletters, and I think one of my criteria, and we didn't go through mine, but I think one of my criteria would be it has to be something, right, that can either make you money, save you money, right? These kind of check boxes. And this is clearly something that can make you money. And And so I want to walk through. Could we walk through a little bit about how I'd actually build this thing?
Yeah. I want to hear more about it. It's I still am like thinking about. It's interesting you said that it had like this big boost and like surge in popularity, and then it's fallen back off. Because if I think about the other like more recent sort of like big trends that have had newsletters in them, like AI and crypto,
Yep.
both of those have had kind of the same thing. They've had like a big, like initial sort of like wow moment.
Yep.
And then everyone kind of forgot about them for a while, except for the people who were really nerdy about it. And then a couple of years later, it kind of blew up again and became a real thing, right? So it's interesting how that's like not necessarily like a negative signal. That could actually be potentially a good thing.
That's a good point. I mean, I will say, right, like this crypto and AI are very different from this. And like crypto, you know, like there are $1 trillion AI companies already, and even crypto, right? Like financial institutions are just starting to make this, you know, like regular financial institutions, JP Morgan's, BlackRock's of the world are starting to embrace this. So, I mean, there is a unlimited opportunity there. I don't think this opportunity is ever going to be that big, but I think for a newsletter, it could be pretty interesting, especially if you're the first player, you know, in the space. So
what does that look like? Like, what's the newsletter?
Yeah. So I think what I would do, right, is I would niche down and I would try to make this thing. I was kind of thinking first, like, do you want to go like a morning brew model? Do you want to just cover all this stuff? But if you go on Kalshi right now, the stuff that's trending is all over the place. It's like, where does the S&P 500 end? You know, what is the Rotten Tomatoes score of How to Train Your Dragon? You know, what is, you know, does Kim Kardashian win an award at, you know, this whatever show, right? There's all these things going on. So I think you really need to pick a lane in it. And where I kind of landed, right, is again, the things I know about, I'd probably pick something in the financial space. That's where a lot of money is spent, you know, in this game. But I was like, let's think of something a little more exciting. I actually like the idea of leaning in, because I think it could go viral or get people really excited about it, is almost leaning into something around the entertainment space. And one of the things I honed in on, probably just because it's a personal interest of mine, is picking Rotten Tomato scores. I think it's kind of a cool idea, right? So it's basically saying, is this going to be, you know, a great movie, a bad movie? Is the you know, is How to Train Your Dragon going to be above 90% score on you know, by audience? And then you also have the critic scores, right? So you can pick a couple different things. I like it because it has entertainment value, right? It's something that you can kind of go and like watch a movie and be like, you know, help kind of predict this. But it also, there's a ton of data around it, right? So you can go back to previous scores. You can look at similar comps movies. You can look at, you know, How to Train Your Dragon. This, I think, is the second or third one. So you can go look at how the others did. You can look at the studio, like how they've done, you know, compare what the budget is to how other movies have done in the similar vein. So I think there's a couple of different things that you can do here. I like the entertainment value. I also like that there's a lot of data. And I think it's something that happens pretty regularly, because when I think about where the S&P 500 is going to end at the end of the year, I wouldn't say your typical weekend warrior is getting super excited about that, right? It's like you kind of pick it and you forget about it. And you're like, oh, if it comes to fruition at the end of the year, that's great. But I think something like this, there's movies coming out all the time. It's kind of an interesting opportunity.
I have a couple of questions, sorry. So first, like, why would you go Rotten Tomatoes score rather than like box office revenue or something, like opening weekend revenue or something like that? That's like one question. And the second question is like, what's the newsletter? Like, what's the content of?
Yeah. No,
like, what am I reading?
I'm going to get into the newsletter. So I think you could certainly do, and that's just like, that's another thing, you know, that you could do. I think there's probably a couple things in that space, right? So my idea is you kind of latch on to an audience who likes something. So I think you could do, you know, box office numbers. You could do stuff around what do people win? They win the Oscars, right? For you know, for acting.
But you're basically saying this is an audience of people who like movies. Maybe they already like gambling, but they don't really have much of a chance to gamble on movies at the moment.
Yeah,
let's
and so
combine the two.
My idea here is this is kind of the the first one you're going to try. And I think you kind of do a bunch of these different niches, and I'll get into what the newsletter looks like. But the other one I liked and I thought was really cool that could potentially go viral is there's a bunch of these things around the Joe Rogan podcast about the different picks of like who's going to be the guest, how many times he asked Jamie to pull something up, right? And I think that's kind of funny and fun. And right, there's what, 10, 20 million people listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. A lot of them are, you know, young male, like in this kind of niche demographic that you could, you know, lean into. And so I think it would just be fun and interesting to pick one of these lanes at the beginning because they're a little bit more entertaining. I think you're going to get some, you know, you're going to get some folks that are interested in this that, you know, for the most part, if somebody is doing, let's say, you know, finance, right? They're just going to go read a finance newsletter. That's going to be a little bit harder to convert them over, but this is such a net new kind of blue sky idea. I think it could, you know, get quite a few people and has the opportunity to go viral. But let's get into the newsletter a little bit. So what I would do is I'd probably have a couple of different sections, right? So one would be, I'd probably have some like data chart at the top of, you know, maybe it's like tracking Rotten Tomatoes, maybe it's tracking, you know, audience numbers over the first couple weekends of, you know, the last How I Trained Your Dragon, you know, those sort of things. The next thing I would do is kind of a news roundup, right? And I would rank it into sentiment. So almost what those, you know, some of those political newsletters are doing, right? Is it like left leaning? Is it right leaning? So you go out and, you know, using the Rotten Tomatoes, you go out and look at what the critics are saying, right? They get a preview of it. And I think you can, you know, really dive into, you know, correlating like what these critics have said before, how right they are, how much it correlates to, you know, that sort of thing. So it's kind of like this interesting data play. And I think you could mess
What's like what are you pitching people who are signing up to the newsletter on? Like, what's the sign up for this to?
Yeah. So I think the value prop here is sign up if you want to bet on this thing, right? So again, I think the idea here is you build a suite of these. So I think like all of these kind of look the same, right? So it's like data, the news roundup, and then I think the right.
Idea, but sorry, am I signing up to like? We are the people who will tell you all about like which, like if you are interested in like prediction market stuff on movies,
yep,
on Hollywood, here is where we're gonna keep you informed. We're gonna like highlight ones.
Yeah. So I actually think the opportunity is in being the prediction markets newsletter suite, right? So I think you're making these for a bunch of different lanes of like the most popular prediction markets that aren't already, you know, I would say pretty saturated. So again, like I would, you know, maybe you start with like Rotten Tomatoes, but then maybe you expand into politics. You know, you do the Joe Rogan podcast. Maybe you could do, you know, some financial markets. But I think you almost create the you know, like inside.com, right? So it's basically you launch across a bunch of these different verticals and you have people signing up for them. You could have people vote, like, what do you guys want to get into next? So I think you're targeting people who are interested in these prediction markets. And the idea is that the value prop is that you want to give them an edge in these prediction markets. And you're kind of the go-to source that's looking at this data through the lens of a prediction market, right? So you're trying to find kind of the arbitrage opportunity. If there's like better odds on another site, you're also giving them that. So it's information they could certainly get elsewhere, right? They could go on variety.com and get, you know, information about the latest movie, but you're going out and you're putting it through the lens of a prediction market.
Got it. So you're saying, for example, if you're subscribed to like the how much is each movie gonna take in its opening box office weekend, for example, yep. You might be featuring like, okay, here are like the movies that are coming up soon for release. Here is like what the current status is in like the prediction markets, which ones are tipping which way, why is there a difference maybe. Here is like some interesting information about maybe like something happened to the marketing budget or something happened to the director or whatever it is, like behind the scenes, kind of like insider information almost it's not insider, but like collecting everything that's publicly available so that they can make informed decisions, and basically saying, look, hey, almost like your kind of like pick, I guess, right? Like, hey, I would be going in on this one, and I would be doing it here where it's like where the odds are like most advantageous, essentially.
Exactly. And so you actually, I think, skipped a step. So how I would monetize these is part of that. So I would actually put that probably behind a paywall. And so I would put kind of like the picks behind a paywall, right? So it'd almost be like the Motley Fool model. It's like, yeah, you can get like the free information and like we'll curate it for you, we'll aggregate it for you. That's all great. You'll get some interesting data, but you have to make your own decision. If you want, our expert picks, you have to pay us $5 a month to get access to it. Or once you build a full suite of all of these, you could say, hey, you get all access for, $50 a month. And, it's 20 different verticals, in this space. And I think what you do is you go out and you partner with somebody. So I was actually looking this up before, and there's, interestingly enough, probably not surprising, there's quite a few like podcasts. There's a couple Substacks that are about the Joe Rogan podcast, right? So they're like breaking down the Joe Rogan podcast. Like, some of them are like more fun leaning about like stuff he said, and they're kind of like making fun of it. And some of them are like breaking down the stories or going deeper. I think you could go and like partner with one of those people on the Substack and be like, hey, I'm running this prediction market about the Joe Rogan podcast. I want you to come here with me. I want you to be our subject matter expert, and I want you to give picks based on this data. So it's basically all this data that you're getting in the newsletter. You're getting an expert opinion on that behind the paywall, and that's what you're paying for. And I see it as no real different than, somebody either making a stock pick or making a gambling pick for you. Quite frankly, most people have no discernible advantage in the stock market or in gambling, and people still pay for it, right? And it's just the fact that you're either validating your idea or somebody is thinking, well, at least I didn't have to make the pick for me, right? And I have an opportunity to get an edge. And I think that's where the opportunity is. And then, of course, like actually monetizing the free newsletter. You go and work with Kalshi, Polymarkets, Robinhood. You work with the gambling companies to promote them. And then I think you also throw in, investment opportunities, alternative investments, because clearly these people are thinking about, investing in other ways.
Yeah. Investing. Yeah. How generous are like, do places like Polymarket or Kalshi, do they do like affiliate revenue?
They
deals?
do. So Kalshi does do an affiliate program. I don't know. I know they have like the personal affiliate, like, I get you to sign up, I get money. So it's like, you could just go run that, or I'm sure you could approach Kalshi and be like, hey, I'm making the definitive kind of newsletter on this. And then I think, your ideal, best case is at some point Kalshi approaches you and they say like, one, either let us sponsor you because we want to be in front of you. We want to be one click that they can, go and bet. So you don't go to Robinhood, you don't go to Polymarket. And then I think second opportunity is you just get scooped up by one of these and, you go and write for them and, have an exit. Again, I want to preface, like, I don't think that this is a, huge, 10-figure, exit that you're going to have with one of these things. It's probably not even a, 7-figure exit, but I think this could be a really cool opportunity to, make a super interesting newsletter and, kind of have this interesting cash flowing business, especially if you're interested in this stuff.
I think it is. I think it always amazes me how much money newsletters in the finance space make. I mean, they make insane amounts, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
And this is like a more accessible kind of untapped niche that feels like, I think it feels a lot less intimidating, right, to join in on, and it's kind of fun. I don't know how good that is for society in general. But
there's no commentary on how good this is for society. But yeah, like you go to Kalshi right now. They make it so easy. It's like yes, no, right? Like they've done what Robinhood did for investing, right? It's like it's not intimidating anymore. It's one click. It's like, it's super fun. Like you can, gamble on it with your buddies. Yeah, I think there's an interesting opportunity, and the thing I love is like nobody seems to be doing this. I'm sure there's some small Substacks, but nobody seems to be making a big splash in this space.
I kind of like it. I mean, I don't know anything about the space. It's not something I do myself, but I like that. I was expecting to be a lot more skeptical and bearish on this.
Tyler, I thought your idea was going to be much, much more stupid.
Yes, I thought it was going to be terrible, but no, I genuinely, I like it as like I see the potential, and it's not something I want to do, but I definitely see the potential there to, like the way you explained it of like taking, for example, you can take sports that people don't normally bet on, for example, and like you have, because you have the community around that, it's so much easier to get in touch with those people.
Yep.
And then you also have like the ridiculous ones, right? Like Polymarket at the moment, they're advertising pretty heavily on Twitter, on X, and they're advertising with this like 4% prediction that Jesus is going to return this year. Right.
Oh yeah.
And like, you don't need something that's that ridiculous to make people who, as like a hook, to make people who care about.
Well, that's an easy way to get people to sign up for this newsletter, right? Like think about we've talked about TikTok videos. Think about making a TikTok video talking about that. It's just a green screen video of you breaking down whether Jesus is going to come back or not. And then be like, by the way, if you want more stuff like this, swipe up for the newsletter.
I like it. I think it has legs. I think it is a 7-figure business. I don't know if it becomes I think it takes a while to become a 1 million subscriber list, but I think it definitely, like, there is people who care about this. You're going to have whales in there. And as soon as you get to the point where someone has paid you $100 a year to be on the paid newsletter, and there's an extra plan where as soon as you get information that will affect it in some way, that you can get onto a list where that gets texted to you before everyone else finds out. That, I think, is where you start to get people who are going to be paying you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars a year to get access to that.
It's copy paste the Market Beat Motley Fool model, right? In granted, a much smaller pool, but if you're the first guy there or gal, it's a big opportunity. And I will say, if you're thinking about starting it, I think now is the right time to launch it. So go get started, because I think there's a big opportunity, right? August is a pretty low, sports calendar, right? You basically have like baseball in the US. So I think gambling is a little bit, there's a little bit of a dip before football gets started. So I think there's a pretty big opportunity there to get it started. And you could really just like go and work with some of those other gambling newsletters who are probably scraping, the barrel for some dollars during those times, and be like, hey, I want to advertise to your market. I want to buy some ad space with them. Like run meta ads, because it's probably not super competitive. Besides DraftKings probably trying to get people signed up for for football season. But I think there's like kind of these unique opportunities you can pick. And I actually think about it, right? Probably the reason that I ended up working at Barstool was because Dave launched Davey Day Trader. And the reason that he launched Davey Day Trader was because sports were closed during COVID, right? So I think about it, I'm like, but what if this stuff had existed, right, in 2020? I could see Dave having done more of this, right? Because it's probably aligns more with gambling, which, he wasn't able to do then because sports were shut down, but he could have gone and picked on, again, like,
I mean, I would love the prediction market for just his pizza reviews. Like as soon as like what's it going to be for the next one, and people, you can like see the menu, you can see the Google reviews, you can go there and taste it.
I would be very curious if that's on there. Yeah, I mean that's another. It's just like there's so much data on it. Like you could go, like you could analyze, like where he is. How he's feeling that day, right? Like you go watch all his podcasts. He's on social media constantly. So you'd be like, oh, Dave's in a bad mood. I know he's in Wisconsin doing pizza reviews. I bet he's going to go here. I bet it's going to be a bad review because he's pissed off at Kirk Minahan or something, right? So there's all these like interesting ways to do it. And I think that's why my lane is like, you have to pick something fun to begin with, because I think you want to make it go viral. You want people to be like, this is cool. And that, like, Kalshi actually made a big splash with that. They did all these kind of viral stunts, when they were launching. And I think that's a good way to look at this market, is it's like half make money and half be entertaining. Cause I don't think anyone's going to take it too seriously if you're literally.
It's like the whole meme stock, like GameStop kind of thing, right? Like the people who are involved in this are like, yeah. It's that generation of people, I think, right?
Exactly.
And I like that. Like maybe the pizza idea is a stupid one, but what you do have there is you have a group of people who are like terminally online, very sort of passionate about the topic, and who are very into like putting money behind things, whether it's investment or.
I mean, that's why it's super smart what Elon did. Look at me calling Elon smart. Elon partnering with Polymarket, right? Because to your point, these people are chronically online. They're sitting there all day, and they're launching, I think it's called X Money or whatever. So you're going to have a wallet on X, right? That you could see something happen and be like, I know more than everyone else on the internet. Move some over to your Polymarket account, gamble on it in real time, and you're basically gambling like on trending news as it's going on. Like, I think that's kind of exciting. And there's probably a lot of people who would be interested in gambling that don't feel like they know enough about sports, or they don't know enough about the stock market, but they feel like they know a lot about who the next Call Her Daddy host is, or a guest is going to be.
Yeah, that's something I know absolutely nothing about.
Yes, me either.
Yeah, although I did meet one of them once in New York randomly. Is it Sophia? Is she the one that left?
Yeah, Sophia with an S.
Yes.
Yeah. She really blew that, I will say. I mean, I think she has a podcast, but I don't think it was, it's $100 million podcast.
No, I don't think so. Cool. I guess maybe before we switch gears a little bit and talk about something else, I actually took like the criteria that we've been talking about, and I put that into like ChatGPT's O3 kind of like research mode thing. And what was really interesting, but like I did it literally once because I could only be bothered to wait like 15 minutes. I didn't want to have to like redo the prompt, which is what you normally have to do a couple of times to get something good.
Right.
But I actually found like it gave me like 30 or 40 different trends that seemed like they could be about to take off in the same way. And there were a couple of them in there where I was like, oh yeah, this is actually like, this could be legit a thing, right? Like the whole flying cars and like electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles thing.
Yeah.
Like that, we don't know when it's going to happen, but that could become a very interesting newsletter for the right person, right? Another one that I really liked was...
I think that's more of a B2B newsletter, which is actually more exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it could be, but it could also be like just an enthusiast thing, right? Like people who get like so excited about like electric vehicles and stuff. You see like Preston, who does the private jets newsletter.
No, I don't think I've seen that.
Preston Holland. He has like a newsletter, and he talks all about like private jets and like the empty legs and how you can get them and stuff. And he's doing pretty well with that. But the other one that I wanted to bring up was like this idea of like smart homes. So smart homes has been around for a while. I don't really know of any newsletter about it, but there's that combination of like smart homes and AI that is going to like completely change in a couple of years what a smart home is, and people are actually going to adopt it. But I think that's a really interesting one where I want to subscribe to that newsletter. Like, I don't know if I'll ever do it, but like, yes, I want to find out like what my house could be doing that it isn't doing right now. Give me the reviews. Like, that's going to be so easy to monetize.
There was actually a newsletter that I knew about. I think it ended up selling. I don't know if it was like a kind of a fire sale, but basically they did like Alexa prompts when Alexa kind of first came out and for the first couple of years. And I feel like that's taken like a huge dive. But interestingly, I think that's going to, like, AI is going to make Alexa actually what we had hoped it was, or what it was going to be. So I think there's an interesting opportunity there, right? If you're doing like, I don't even know what you call it, Alexa commands, I guess, right? Or something like that, just ways to use it. I think that could be, super interesting. And I think that ties into the whole like smart house. How do you bring, your home together? Because I think right now, Generally, unless you're an extreme tech nerd, I think people look at that and are like, I don't know, that's confusing as hell. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of options. What smart, light bulb do I buy? All those sorts of things. But I think, if you can kind of be the expert there, it's an interesting opportunity.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think, it's going to be, there's a whole bunch of those trends.
One of the ones that I was looking at,
I'll put a link to the PDF in the show notes, by the way. Like a lot of this stuff is in there is nonsense, but it's pretty difficult to scroll through and not be inspired by like 2 or 3 of the ideas.
So I just did this as we were talking. One of the ones that I think is interesting is train travel.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, I like that one.
I think we should actually break that one down at some point, because I think it's having kind of like a moment on social media. Maybe I just got into the algorithm, but I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of doing like train travel through Europe, like luxury train travel through Europe or through the US, West. You go through the Rocky Mountains and stuff. I think it's kind of a cool idea. And I know there's a lot of money there's obviously like cruise ships, like they get kind of a bad rap of being, just like this party at sea where everyone gets sick and it's gross food. But then there's these like luxury, and I actually did a deep dive on it for the Water Coolest with Viking Cruises, which is kind of these like river cruises mostly in Europe. And it's like very interesting because it's like old people with a boatload of money that, they're paying for these things. It's much more expensive than a typical cruise. And I don't know, I'm just kind of intrigued. Maybe it's like the 6-year-old in me that's intrigued by trains, but I think that's kind of an interesting idea. And obviously luxury travel newsletters are always going to be kind of in vogue. So if you can start with trains, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, anything like that is going to be great because you're going to have like such compelling visuals, right? And you have so many different angles that you have deals, you have more of like the living vicariously through me as I do it, sort of like inspirational stuff. And then you have like the whole services element of it, and like you'll help people book it, find the deals.
Best part of writing is like you get to you're probably going to get some free train rides.
There are a couple of people who are YouTubers, I think, who have like huge audiences, and they're not even riding like the luxury trains. They're just like randomly riding normal trains. Like
there's the one guy who's my favorite.
The British guy.
Yes. I think he like is potentially on the spectrum or something. But
he's way on the spectrum.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I was like, I think he is, but he's so excited. He sees just like random freight trains, and he goes to these wild places in the UK, just like very remote places, just so he can see this one specific train and knows all the model numbers, and it just gets you so pumped up. You're like, okay, this guy loves what he's into. So, I think there's like an interesting kind of nostalgia play there too, of like, it's like old school travel.
And I think there's a bunch of that stuff that is like that hasn't come out yet, because these trends have been like primarily focused on, I think at least when it comes to newsletters, we've managed to harness them mainly with like the terminally online kind of like millennial man has been like really who's been taking advantage of this.
Right.
And if you take that out to like pets, like how much money people want to spend on their pets nowadays, I think there's going to be a bunch of stuff there that's going to be like a huge newsletter that, I mean, you just go around to like 10 pet brands that are like D2C pet brands, you partner with them, you get a couple 100,000 subscribers from each, and you're already at 1 million subscribers without really having done anything, right? I think kids like learning alongside AI is going to be a huge thing. Like, how do you let your kids interact with that and all the other stuff that's happening? I don't know anyone who's writing a big newsletter on that, but it feels important.
I will say quickly, I love that idea because I'll try to find it. It was an Instagram page I signed up for, but it's basically the equivalent of what you'd sign up for 5 years ago. To be like, here's arts and crafts that are going to keep your kids entertained. It's basically, here's a bunch of AI prompts or stuff that's going to keep your kids entertained. So it was like, one of them was, and I did this with my son, I was like, okay, you go draw something, right? And he just draws like a triangle with arms and legs. And then it's like, turn this, you take a picture of it with ChatGPT, say, turn this into a real life character or cartoon character, and write a 10-page storybook on it for a 4-year-old. And it does that in 30 seconds. And it's awesome. And my son is obsessed with it. and it just saved me a ton of money on, buying a $12 book. So I think that could be really cool. And I would love to get that in my inbox of just ideas of like, what am I going to do with my son tonight with AI that he's actually learning? And it's something that's going to entertain him, and it's free.
Yeah, I think that one is a killer for sure. If you know that audience. And the other one I had was like just anything around like this more like women and like female oriented. So I really love what like what are they called? The Gist have been doing with women's sports, right? And there's a bunch of those who've taken topics that were like more traditionally like male oriented and have started writing about them for women and about the women's side of things. And I don't know many newsletters for women that are like, or like written by women specifically targeting women, I should say, on finance, on gambling, on any of this stuff, right? Like AI. Like where is that stuff?
Yeah, I actually, it's funny this is a while ago, probably before COVID, but I actually spoke to Betches. I basically pitched them on that idea. I was like, listen guys, like I have all this, finance, curation, like they were already sending newsletters, but I was like, why don't we partner? Like I can kind of help you guys get the news. Like you have an editor kind of help out with writing it, putting it into your language. Cause I just saw such parallels between what they were doing and what I was doing. It's like, I'm just writing to, a 25 to 45-year-old male with that type of humor, making, references to 90s movies. And they were doing the exact same thing, but for, let's call it like 18 to 25-year-old females. And I was like, why can't we just make like a finance, newsletter like that? And I think there has been a few people who've done that. Like Miss Dow Jones has done a really good job of, kind of putting it in pop culture terms, explaining, she does more personal finance stuff. But yeah, I agree. It's like taking the subject and putting it through a different lens is always a really good opportunity, especially if it's a massive category like finance.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like what the Pour Over managed to do with like just daily news, but for Christians, like
they're like, we're gonna put it through the lens of Jesus, but it's literally 1440, and it's like, yeah, but people feel seen, right? And they want to read something that feels more personal to them.
Yeah, which by the way, I mean, I'm glad when we talked a couple of weeks ago about which newsletter you'd invest in. I'm glad I didn't say the Pour Over, because if Jesus is really coming back this year, like next year's revenue is going to be tough for them. Because one thing, if anyone has any like, if this sparked any ideas for anyone, I would love to like hear about them. We're not going to steal them, but we're happy to like bounce ideas off. You can even come on and maybe
he only speaks for himself.
Talk it through us. Tyler will steal it. It's okay, but he's currently in basement, so it's not much of a threat. We're okay.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. Yeah, if you guys have an idea, I would love to either send it to us and we can kind of break it down or see how we build it. Or like, I'd love for people to come on if they're comfortable, just come on and talk about it. We can talk through the idea, how we'd build it out. We can give some ideas. I think that'd be fun.
So let's move on to something completely different. I am going to test you a little bit, I hope, today.
I'm not a good test taker. I always got extra time, which is probably why I ended up in the newsletter space. So, but let's go.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So something that came up to me, like when we talk about like newsletter growth, revenue, engagement, my whole thing when I'm talking to people is like, ignore the quick wins, ignore like little hacks that you can do today that won't pay off again in the future, that won't make a big difference. If you just get like the fundamentals, right? Like you choose like one free and one paid channel that build a flywheel. You figure out like one or two really good ways to monetize your newsletter, make it nice and simple, right? Write really good content. Focus on like getting the basics, and you don't need to worry about all of this like fancy stuff. But then I was thinking the other day, I was like, okay, I really strongly believe that that's all true, but there has to be like a bunch of stuff that you can do. If you only have like 15 minutes on a coffee break and you want to work on your newsletter, or you're getting into a train for 20 minutes and you want to do something productive in the train for 20 minutes, like what can you do that is actually going to have like a real big lasting impact on your newsletter in those like 20 minutes? And so I was thinking about this. I came up with like 5 that I think are really like high value things that everybody should be doing. And so I thought what we could do is I'll sort of give you a quick pitch on them.
Okay.
And you can tell me like, A, do you already do them at the water coolest? B, if not, like, what's your take? Like, are you going to do them?
Yep.
Do you disagree? And then maybe if you have any of your own as well, you can add in a couple of extras that I didn't think of. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Okay, so my first sort of like quick win for a newsletter is when someone visits your newsletter landing page, you want them to put in their email address and click subscribe.
Ideally, right? Yes.
Yes, ideally. And like everything you're doing on your landing page should be to like minimize distraction and make that like the default thing that people are going to do. Well, turns out if you add like literally 1 line of code to your landing page website, you make this small tweak so that when someone visits the page, the email capture form, like the input field, is already highlighted so that it's already like blinking as if they'd already clicked on it. And they don't even have to make the decision to like go to that place. They're already on it. All they have to do is start typing. Or if they're on their phone, the keyboard is already open, ready for them. And like it's probably, if they're on an iPhone, it's probably already suggesting their email address to autofill, right? As soon as they get there. And every single time I've done this with people, they get 20 to 25% higher conversion rates. It's like literally like if you're not doing this, you're getting 3 subscribers when you should be getting 4.
So you lost me at you add a little bit of code. No, I do not do this, and I want to do this. I don't know how to do this, but I'm sure that I could ask ChatGPT how to.
You can ask ChatGPT, or there's a couple. I wrote an article on this like 3 or 4 years ago. There's a couple of people who've like shared the code snippet that you have to add. Like it's pretty quick.
It's actually nuts that this has, because there's so many little things that people are like, oh, you got to do this on your landing page, optimize, or you can, there's like the software you can use to capture them, even if they don't sign up, right? But it's like,
yeah,
if you do this, it's such a no-brainer from a user experience.
It just makes it that much a little bit easier for them. Plus, also, like the most important thing is that like they don't have to make that decision, right? They're already there. It's already focused. They can just type in their email address or click like, yes, this is my email address.
I don't know what the other ones are, but this one already won in my book. So that's awesome. And I want to figure out how to do that. So,
okay. So we've got one that we're taking on board. Okay. Let's go to number 2. So number 2 is, I hear a bunch of people talking about subject lines and optimizing the subject line. Do you do a different subject line each day, or do you just do like a standard, like, it's the water coolest, open up kind of thing?
No, I do a different subject line every day.
Do you write a custom preview text?
I do. So the approach I take is, so I actually recommend people don't do this. And this is going to sound cocky, and I say that I like earned it. But basically, the best way you can think about like my subject lines is they're meant to be like more funny, attention grabbing, just kind of ridiculous, or some play on words, right? Like I almost like pride myself on that. And it's almost, if someone doesn't know what I'm talking about, like go to the New York Post, and those kind of things are typically what my subject line is. So that doesn't actually do probably what most people would think they should do in a subject line, which is, right, like try to get people in, maybe give them a preview, like what's your value prop, kind of like all of the 101 stuff on subject lines. I don't do. So for most of my clients, I recommend they don't do that. I think you can do that once you have kind of this more established brand or this expectation of, what people are going to get. And I think I've kind of built that up. And I think with the water coolest, people expect kind of this irreverence and fun, and it just being not super serious. So that's why I do it. But then I do use the preview line as more almost like a traditional subject line that's like, here's, today we're focusing on Meta's acquisition of XYZ, right? And so then that kind of, my thought is, that's where people see like, oh, that's like the value. That's a story I actually want to read. The other thing is kind of funny, and, I want to click on it to see what it's about. It's, creates some curiosity. but I do write both custom subject line and preview. And yeah, I agree with you. If you're not doing that, you should be.
I love that. I think it's one of the biggest misses that you can make is to not write one, because you have like 3 elements, right? You have your name or like your from text, like who the email's from. That should be, in a lot of cases, like in your case, probably that's enough for them to see, oh, it's the water coolest.
Yep.
I'm
also a proponent of the emoji in the subject line. I know people go back and forth, like emojis are, going to get killed by spam filters and stuff. I like the one emoji. It's the same emoji every single day. People see it in their inbox.
I do that as well. I like that. But I really like the custom preview text, because if you don't do a custom preview text, the way that people like scan, and most of this is happening on their phone, right? They get notification pops up. It's Tyler at the water coolest. Okay, great. I like Tyler at the water coolest. Maybe there's a subject line. The subject line is supposed to be the same thing, right? It grabs your attention if you don't recognize the email address. But then you don't click immediately. Your eye keeps going, and you see the first couple of words, like the first sentence almost you see in the inbox or in the notification on your phone. And if that's just the default, which is like, hi, welcome back, blah, 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 like the actual thing that would be in the email, you've completely lost them, right? It's like having a killer thumbnail for a YouTube video, a killer title for the YouTube video, and then starting off with like the worst hook of all time, being like, hi, welcome to my channel. Thank you very much for being here. It's like, no, I'm gone now. I was interested. I was curious. You haven't got me hooked in. So
I'm gonna take that one step further. And again, I'm being, so I actually still do it. I actually don't think you should start your email with, hey, whatever, even if it's you're putting their name in there. I think that's a waste of space, and you should be putting a hook. And I actually saw someone say this, and I thought it was great. I think I might have sent it to you on LinkedIn, and they were like, you need to be thinking about your newsletter like a marketing email. It needs to have a hook. Like you should be thinking about it like almost like a social media post, right? Is like you're getting someone right away. And you would never say on social media, hey followers, and then comma, space, and then get into it. Here's what's going on today. It's like, no, you would never say that. It's like, just get into it. Everyone already knows what you're doing. It's a newsletter. And it's just like another one of these things that I think has stuck with people from like the early, newsletter days that people saw, maybe the Brew do it, the Skim do it, the Hustle do it. And it's like, we're just going to do it because it's always been done that way. Like I would recommend just getting rid of that stuff.
I like that for a daily newsletter. I don't have a hey so-and-so, but what I do is like a welcome back to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a hypocrite. I still have hey there, and then I go into like the full intro. Okay. But I did change my intro, which I want to talk about at a different podcast.
Nice. I still do like the welcome thing, because I think I have like the subject line, the name, the preview text is the hook. And then the reason I have that like one sentence of like, welcome back to Grow My Newsletter, the whatever it is, right? Like, and then I give like some kind of funny description sometimes, like I'll change it every time. But people who read the newsletter regularly, they skip over that one line. And people who don't read, because I only send once a week.
Right.
You can sign up for the newsletter, and then maybe it's like 5 or 6 days before you get another email from me in some cases. So I like to have that quick reminder. And also for people who maybe had it forwarded to them, it's kind of cool to be able to say like, look, here is like that link with context of like why you should go and sign up.
Absolutely.
So my third one, like idea that you could implement 20 minutes, quick win for the newsletter, was to add recommendations. Free recommendations, paid recommendations, doesn't really matter, depends what you're going for. But if you're not doing either of these, I think that is it's a huge loss in 2025, because if you just add some free recommendations, recommend like 5 to 10 other newsletters that you think are interesting and in the same space, you'll get some of those to recommend you back, especially if you ask them to partner up.
Mm-hmm.
You've just doubled or tripled your growth with hardly any work for free. And if you do paid recommendations, well, great. Now you earn anywhere from 40 cents on the low end up to like $1.50, $2 on the high end per new subscriber.
Right.
So you can go and spend a bunch of money on growth, right? Like it doesn't matter whether you're doing this with like whatever tool. Like obviously with me coming from Sparkloop, like I'm going to say use Sparkloop, but anyone is better than nothing, right? Like if you don't do this, like definitely go and do this.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I don't use Sparkloop because there's some reasons, some technical reasons, but I do use Beehive Boost, and I agree with you. I think it's it's just table stakes at this point, right? It's like, have it turned on. I think everyone has an opinion on like, are these great subs, or like, quality, blah blah blah. I think there's some question about that, depending on who you use, what you use. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, if you're cleaning your list and you're getting decent subs for a decent cost per acquisition, or you're even getting them for free, it's a no-brainer. Like, just clean out the bad ones, right? It's going to happen. You're going to get bad subs no matter what, right? If you're doing co-registration, like traditional co-reg, if you're doing Facebook ads, whatever. So I think, to an extent, it gets some of these places get a bit of a bad rap. Definitely not Sparkloop, but I think it's one of those things where it's table stakes at this point. It's like, just turn it on, set it and forget it. And like, those are the best things, especially as a, one person operator, small team. It's like, you want that stuff that just always on, that you don't have to think about. And this is probably the best one there is.
So let's go to number 4 out of 5. Next one that I had is, most people, and I'm guessing you as well, Tyler, you send a welcome email to new subscribers.
I do.
Right? If that subscriber doesn't do anything with the email, maybe doesn't open it, doesn't click on anything, what's the next time they're going to get an email from you?
Yeah, so this is actually a good one. I'm in the process of basically rebuilding my welcome drip. So right now, and this is like very one-on-one stuff, you get the welcome email and you don't get anything else after it, right? And I totally agree with you. That's like a big no-no. And I tell all of my clients for consulting, right, you need to have a drip campaign of, multiple emails of welcome emails. And I think you should be segmenting that too, to your point, where, if you get the welcome email, you don't open that, maybe you don't open, depending on the cadence of your actual newsletter, if you don't open the first couple or something, you get another nudge and say, hey, by the way, here's what you're missing. Something as simple as that. Here's a note from the founder. Maybe here's some sort of special offer if you want to bribe them to open it. I think it's, again, like the recommendations, it's such an easy thing to do. It's like, turn it on once, make a really good email, and check it every couple months, or check it once a quarter or something, and just make sure it still makes sense. But just turn it on, and even if it increases, the engagement by 5%, 10%, like, it's free. Like, why would you not be doing it?
Yeah. And the one thing that I wanted to highlight there is, like, I think people, even like really smart operators, make a mistake here, which is, we kind of touched on this in our Q&A with Dan Barry about being scared to monetize and being scared to like overwhelm new subscribers. Where I think the opposite is true, right? I think when you get a new subscriber, you want them to be all in or all out as soon as possible. And that new subscriber is never going to be as excited about your newsletter as the moment that they just signed up.
Yep.
So what a lot of people do is they'll send the welcome email. The subscriber will do nothing with it because they signed up on their phone when they're in the bathroom, and then they go back to work, or like life happens, right? So they don't see the email 2 or 3 minutes later. Great, that's fine. And then they'll wait 24 hours to send the next email or a follow-up or something like that. And it's like, why are you so scared of being in that person's inbox? Like, why not hit them when they're actually like interested and motivated,
right,
and they still have a really good memory of like signing up for this? If you just wait like 3-4 hours, maybe even less, maybe 2 hours, and you send a follow-up then saying, hey, I know just like I did this thing for you. I really need you to do this. Please like go and do it now, right? But in more like, obviously the wording is more sort of like driven by their value rather than like you want them to go and do this thing. I've seen people do that, and they will get 20, 25, 30% increases in like activation of people.
I agree with you. I mean, I probably still am. Some of that's still stuck in my brain of like, very old school. Yeah. Like, you send the first one immediately, then you wait 24 hours and another 24 hours, then you start spacing it out. I agree. Again, going back to the marketing tactics, it's like, why is it okay for Best Buy. If I go and I put a laptop in my cart, but then I decide I want to check on Amazon, Best Buy is sending me probably 5 emails that day saying like, hey, Tyler, by the way, you left this in your cart. Here's why you should get it. It's a great pick for you. Oh, by the way, do you want 10% off? We'll give you 10% off if you buy it right now. And this ends, at the end of 24 hours. So they're sending 4 or 5 emails in a day. It's like, why aren't we thinking about that the same way? And I know some people will say, well, that's kind of aggressive. And I think to your point, it's like, well, yeah, you're competing for, attention in the inbox. Like, just because it's an editorial product that we're in theory selling, or an advertising product, it doesn't mean it's not a product, right? So it's like, get it in front of people. And I think the one that you brought up the other day, which I had actually complained was too much, I'm changing my mind on, was the generalist, right? I think the first day after I signed up for that, they had a pretty cool, way of getting us to sign up through TikTok. But I think I got 4 or 5 emails from them in the first day. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a lot. But it stood out in my inbox, and I still see their emails and I notice them more. So I don't know. It's a good way to stand out. Like, a lot of people are not doing it, and it's probably a big opportunity and advantage right now.
I think it's a huge advantage. I think I get why people don't do it, because people don't see the big picture, right? You add that second email in, and what happens? You'll go into your ESP and you'll see from that, like if you send them a follow-up email after 2 hours saying, hey, why didn't you click this thing? Go click this thing. There's going to be a bunch of people who unsubscribe from that email, right? So
right.
At first, you're going to think, okay, I sent this email, I get more unsubscribes from it. This is a bad email, right? I should avoid this email and try and send as few emails as possible. But if you actually track through and go, okay, all I care about is at the end of the month, how many active subscribed newsletters, how many active subscribers do I have at the end of the month?
Yep.
When I send this email versus when I don't. You have more. You have some of the people who are going to unsubscribe and be disengaged anyway are going to unsubscribe.
Yeah, it's like dating. Like, you want to find out if you love or hate each other sooner rather than dragging it out for a while, right? And I think it makes you feel better that it's going on for a while, that someone subscribed for your newsletter and then they decide. But if they unsubscribe after a month, it's like you just wasted a month trying to hook them, and they're not going to be a quality lead.
Which is exactly why my fiance, I emailed her every 2 hours for the first week straight.
That's a good idea. Yes, and that's why she got a restraining order.
She can't.
Were you just about to say she can't go anywhere now?
Yeah. She's in Brazil now. We're fine. She's 10 hours flight away from me for completely unrelated reasons.
That's probably safe. Yes.
Cool. I got one more. Let's do that quickly. So the last one that I had was, I think, a way to free up some more of your own time. So I've seen a bunch of people do this recently, where they'll reach out to people. Maybe they are newsletter operators. Maybe they don't even have a newsletter, but they're in your space, and just pitch them on writing a guest post. Say, hey, I have 20, 50, 100,000 subscribers. They would love to hear from you in like a quick article format. You can repurpose like something else you've done if you want. Doesn't have to be something completely new, but like, come write something for me, get in front of the audience. It'll be interesting. People love reading it.
Mm-hmm.
You get a day off of having to write the newsletter, and you get something fresh. And 9 times out of 10, they go and share that thing with their own audience as well. Especially if you like say, hey, this worked really well. Like, here's the link in case you want to go and share it. No, wink, wink. Have you ever done them? I guess it's hard with your format.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult with my format. And people kind of partially come to the water coolest because it's my voice and my opinions on it. I think it could be interesting if I brought the right people in. Maybe, I think about some of the finance influencers, right? Like if I did something with liquidity or something, right? I think that could make sense. And it's almost like a better like newsletter swap, right? Versus just putting an ad in each other's newsletter and saying like, hey, you should subscribe for this. It's more of that. I think it's funny because I think this is becoming more popular because of Substack, right? And I think it goes back to what we said, a couple podcasts ago, that basically Substacks are just blogs at this point. And this was like a huge thing for blogs. I remember when I first started the blog, that ended up becoming my first newsletter and then became the water coolest. it was like everything you read, right? If you searched on how to grow your blog, like number one was always do cross blogging, go talk to other people about it, try to get on bigger blogs. And I think people are just realizing it's kind of coming full circle again that this actually does work if you can get people to, promote it.
The other thing I'll say about that is also that people who are coming to Substack now, most of them are not coming from the newsletter space. They are like younger, like more, I guess, like, what would you call like digital native, kind of like Gen Z people, right? Who their primary forms of like content creation are YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, podcasts. What is like the number one way you go about growing pretty much every single one of those content types? It's collaborations, right? It's partnering up with other people. It's bringing them onto your channel, going onto theirs. It's doing like challenge videos together and collabs and all this kind of stuff. So of course, when they go to a new medium, they're going to go, well, this works literally everywhere else. We're going to do this over here as well.
Yeah.
And for some reason, those of us who decide to who come from the newsletter space and like to sit at home alone in the dark and write instead of like go and talk to people, for some reason we don't do that. For some reason, I don't know why.
I will say though, I think the like cross promo thing, right? So like, a free kind of swap where you say like, I'm going to put an ad in yours, you'll put an ad in mine. I don't think a lot of times, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze there. It's like, okay, you get 100 subs from that. If you're a big enough newsletter, that just doesn't move the needle. And I find a lot of those things, because there's not a great, let's call it, marketplace for that. I guess there's one, but I think the problem is it just makes it a little bit harder to actually get anything out of it. It's a lot of back and forth, a lot of manual stuff. And so I think when you're like really trying to focus on growth, it's like some of the other things that you can just kind of turn on and automate and not have to think about, like, the swaps and stuff, or excuse me, the recommendations. I think swaps are like generally, once you get to a certain size, it's probably good when you're doing the things, it's like do the things that don't scale. That's one of those things. But I think when you're trying to scale, it just becomes more of a nuisance in my mind, at least, because I did do it at the beginning and now I just don't think it's worth it, even with some major newsletters.
I think swaps, we can do a whole episode on swaps, because I have a lot of thoughts about how to do them well, and most people really don't. I think you have like a particular challenge with swaps in that you, like Morning Brew, you don't have a concrete thing that people can get instantly when they sign up to your newsletter. It's about knowing you and liking the way that you write about a specific topic. So in your case, you really have to you would have to create something that you could give to people, right? So your swap would the swap, it'll be really easy for you to swap, to send subscribers to other people.
Yep.
But when you want other newsletters to send you subscribers, you're going to have to create something which is like, hey, here are Tyler's top 5 picks, or Tyler from the water coolers, the super smart guy, has gone out and he's done a deep dive on prediction markets that could make you millions this year, and sign up for that. Then you have to funnel them through there, right? So I think they definitely can work if you do them in a smart way, and that's still not, I think, the smart way. But you definitely need it can't be like a call to action to go and sign up for the newsletter, right? It's either got to be one of two things. It's got to be either here is something insanely valuable for free that you can get by clicking on this, a lead magnet, or a tool, something like that, like a calculator or something.
Yeah.
Or the other thing it can be is a challenge swap, right? So you could go in with I don't know, Liquidity or someone like that, and do hey, we challenged each other to see who could I don't know, picks whatever it is, right? Or who would get the best return on something in this time, and the first half's in his newsletter and the second half's in yours, or something like that.
Yeah, I guess for the sake of this quiz, I've done these. And I think you kind of have to pick and choose based on your situation, whether they're going to work or not.
Yeah. But the nice thing I like about them is if you invite other people to write a guest post for your newsletter, best case, they say yes, you get free subscribers and you don't have to write an edition. Worst case, they're still going to say no, but thank you, let's partner up on something else. Here's maybe some way we could work together, right? It's the net outcome of that is going to be positive in some way, even if it doesn't get you the guest post.
So how did I do on this quiz?
I think you did pretty well, right? You had, I think,
I don't have autofocus. I do write a custom preview. I do recommendations. I'm adding a nudge, so I'll give myself half point for that, and then reach out to relevant. I used to do that, so I'll say half point. So I got 3 out of 5.
Pretty good.
That sounds kind of like high school.
Like,
C's get degrees, folks. Let's remember. And you can end up like me, writing newsletters in your basement.
Have you got any, like, what's like, if you could add like one, because we've gone pretty long, like what would be like the top one you would add to that?
Yeah, this is going to sound super cliche. I would clean your list. Well, I would do 2 things with your list. One, I would download it like once a month. If not, if you're growing
Very
quickly,
smart.
I would download it once a week. Just set a reminder on your calendar, pay someone to do it, whatever you have to do. These ESPs, their servers could get unplugged pretty easily. I think that's how it works.
Also, if you, I'm sorry to pick on these 2 in particular, but I like to hang out on like newsletter Reddit a lot, and it gives me inspiration for the podcast as well. Just go and type in Substack locked or Substack banned and Beehive locked and Beehive banned. Download your list every week. That's all I'm going to say. Like as much as you can.
Yeah, I haven't seen as much with Beehive, but I've heard recently, and this is probably just kind of the LinkedIn algo I'm in, I've seen quite a bit of like Substack issues, either getting locked or it just disappearing overnight, and there basically being no way of break. So yeah, I would say always just download your list like once a week, just for peace of mind. And then the other thing would be, just clean your list when you download it. If you don't have this automated or set up, I would still I trust the tech that, Beehive and Kit. Well, I guess maybe not Substack. I trust their tech, right? But I have automation set up, and I still go in and I look at my list. I just get in Excel, look at it, how many people have opened, how many people have not, right? Like I still do some cleaning manually, and I would recommend that. Just like keep an eye on it. Just make sure that you're actually cleaning your list the old-fashioned way every once in a while versus just having kind of automation set up, because you'll find some people slip through the cracks. And I think it's just good to get a better understanding and run some analysis on your list. So those are the only real 2 things, if you had 15 or 20 minutes, of what I would do literally right now.
Nice. If anyone else has any sort of like hacks that they managed to do in like 15, 20 minutes and get some good results, send it in. We'll give you a shout out as well, and we'll cover it in
can I add one more thing? And this is another kind of 101 thing. You've probably seen a lot of kind of the gurus write about this. I, at least for B2B, and probably like I don't do it, I should. So I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I like the pre and post call to action on social media. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think it's such an easy thing to do, like literally copy a couple lines from your newsletter and say, hey, I'm about to write a newsletter on XYZ. And then after you send it, just say, I wrote a newsletter about XYZ, and you can put a link in there. It's not going to work super well if you're not posting, pretty consistently and playing nice on social media. But I've seen it work really, really well, especially in the B2B space. Just kind of saying, hey, here's what's happening in my newsletter. And that won't even take 15 or 20 minutes. That takes 30 seconds to, copy out, make a social post. You can make a ChatGPT prompt for something like this. So I would definitely recommend that. And it's worth trying no matter what newsletter you have.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's the only thing I'll say about that is when Twitter was less angry about links, that made a big difference to me. Like I don't have that many followers. I have like maybe, I don't know, I have less than 10,000, like 5,000-6,000, something like that.
Yeah, not that it's a contest, but I have more.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't live in my basement. I'm feeling good. I used to get maybe like 15, 20 subscribers if I did like a catchy post like that. Now I get nothing. Now I get like 100 views on it. So
yeah.
LinkedIn, I still do. The problem, but that has its own problem, which is on LinkedIn, it can take like a day for your post to start to get exposure. So by the time people are seeing that and like subscribing, the email 9 out of 10 times has already gone out for most of them. So then I get people following up like, hey, I signed up to get this and it hasn't gone out. Like I haven't received it yet. Like what's going on? So You'd have to deal with those.
Yeah, just a note on that. I feel like everyone, right, like that was an algorithm change, and I want to remind everyone, like that was just an algorithm change, and like it could switch back any minute. So I think a lot of people and some of the clients I work with, they're like all about just being like, hey, I'm going to give up on this platform. Like I would never, unless you really, really, really do not have the time and it's just impossible to do, I would keep some minimum amount of discussing your newsletter or promoting it on social, because one, like there's always a chance that it goes viral, and two, it's like I feel like you just want to keep that audience warm if and when kind of the algorithm does switch. And like we have no idea. Like clearly Elon is a loose cannon, and he could decide at any minute to for some reason want to send traffic off of the website. So I would say just keep that in mind. Like it's, it may just be worth your time to keep a, what do we say? Keep a coal in the fire, something like that. Whatever it is, I would keep it warm.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a natural place to end the episode, right? Like Tyler's optimism of Elon, interesting guy, pretty sure he's going to do the right thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place for us to end with.
Yeah, he has a good track record of doing the right thing.
Tyler, if people have questions or they want to share any of this stuff, where can they go and send that to us?
Yeah, so shoot us a note at letterlandpod@gmail.com. We would love if you guys sent over voicemails or recordings of you asking questions. We'll play it on the pod with your permission and answer them. But yeah, we have an entire Q&A episode, which we're about to record now. So send us some questions. We'd love to answer them for you.